Welcome back to Financial Clarity for Doctors. I'm Corey Janoff, as always, joined by Rachelle Vanderzanden.
I'm always here too.
There we go. And this year alone, about half a dozen or so clients of mine personally have engaged in talks to sell their practice, mostly to private equity firms. One of them was an individual who just approached and wanted to buy the practice. But it's becoming a hot topic. Private equity making their way into healthcare. They're buying private practices, they're buying multi-specialty groups, they're buying hospital systems.
hmm
Um, it's it's making waves. I'm sure all of you have heard of, know people, are aware of private equity buying places. So today we're going to talk about things to consider if you're thinking of selling your practice. And it doesn't necessarily mean private equity. We'll talk a little bit about that, but basically just selling your practice in general. Or if you're employed by a practice or an employer that is selling, things could change a little bit for you. So we wanted to talk about that, pros and cons, things to consider so that you can make educated decisions if you're going to go that route.
Cool. Yeah, I think that this is becoming a lot more common. In 2012, 60% of physicians worked in physician-owned private practices, and in 2024, that's actually declined to 42% of doctors. Hospital-owned practices have increased a little bit, so that's part of that swing from 23% to 35% in that same time frame. And then the amount of practices owned by PE has also increased by like 2%, but that was in a much shorter time frame. So in 2024, it was 6.5% of private practices were owned by PE, and that's up from 4.5% in like that 2020 to 2022 timeframe. So it's definitely a new phenomenon. This is a new thing, but it definitely seems like a trend in that direction, and we expect that that will probably continue to happen.
I mean, a 50% increase in 2 years is a
That's
pretty
big.
significant jump.
hmm
And, we just pulled some quick data from the AMA, but if you went back farther, like 3 decades ago, hardly any doctors were employed by hospitals. They were all in private practice. So it's definitely
hmm
been the trend. Um, and and I think that's there's numerous factors. Some of it's hard to run a business, and larger companies have economies of scale, more operational efficiencies. They can run it smoother, get larger profit margins, and it can be a win-win for for you. You don't have to wear two hats. You can just be a doctor and not do the business running side of it, and potentially make more money as a result because of, again, operational efficiencies. Margins are higher, negotiating power with insurance companies, etc. Now we could get into a whole nother argument about, or maybe a conversation, not argument, about how it's affected patient care and doctor well-being and burnout, and you guys are just treated like cogs in a system now, rather than you know service workers serving patients. So that's a whole nother debate, but we're going to focus on the financial aspects of it today. So from the private equity firms position, let's see, why do they want to buy medical practice? What's their objective? So their goal is to find smaller independent practices that they can gobble up and consolidate into one larger organization. So let's go find all of the orthopedic surgery groups in this region, and we're going to make them an offer that they can't refuse, and we're going to combine all these orthopedic surgery groups into one, and we're going to sell this large orthopedic surgery entity to a larger group, larger private equity firm, hospital, whoever. We'll find a buyer for it and hopefully increase the multiple above and beyond what we paid for it, and everyone makes money in the end. And as a small business, kind of already touched on it, there are challenges in the business world, and if you can join forces, become larger, or get absorbed by a larger entity, you have benefits of economies of scale. Costs can be reduced when you're buying goods and services, operational efficiencies. If they have some turnkey system for running their practice, they can just plug and play and get you going on a more efficient system. Again, the negotiating power for reimbursements with insurance companies, the larger you are, the more say you have, and can get larger reimbursements. But yeah, the end goal of the private equity firm is to ultimately sell your group 3, 5, 7 years down the line as part of a larger deal and make some return on their investment.
Yep. Everyone wants to make money. That's the point. So there are different structures to like deals like this, but they can be pretty typical sometimes. A lot of times they come and there's like 70% cash, and then they offer you 30% stock in the PE firm itself. So like you may have a buyout portion that's just money to you, and then you get a share of the equity as well. And that stock that you get a share of is typically worthless until an equity event happens, like when they resell the firm to that larger group. If their goal is to kind of turn it more profitable, turn it over and sell it to another group, then that's when you potentially get that equity payout as well. How they value your company can vary a little bit as well, but oftentimes it's a multiple based on practice metrics, but typically like 5 to 10 times what your profits are. So whatever you're making above and beyond your expenses and things like that's what they're going to use to value your practice. For example, if you co-own your practice with a partner and you have $1 million of profits annually, you and your partner each take like $500,000 of salary and $500,000 of those profit distributions. The PE firm might offer you somewhere between 5 to 10 million. So 5 to 10 times that profit number, which is that 100 or 1 million that you're splitting between you and the partner. So maybe you get 70% of that in cash, again, split between you and your partner, and 30% of that in stock. Um, and then they'll probably require that you stay there. You're making money for the company. So they may require that you stay there and remain an employee for 3 to 5 years at a fixed salary or something like that. But that will probably be in that contract. Like, we need you, the moneymaker, to be here. You might keep your salary, but you'll lose your profit distribution. So that payout that they gave you at the beginning, that's like, okay, I'm getting my profit distributions for however many years up front, kind of is how you can think of it. And then there's likely going to be some sort of non-compete. Like, they don't want you to leave and go work somewhere else and turn someone else's business profitable while their business suffers, because their whole point is to make money. So they're going to try to control that as much as possible. And then non-competes can vary in degree of like how enforceable they are by state and things like that. So it'll be important to consult with an attorney, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, but definitely worth talking to someone. Don't try to figure this out yourself. Like, you're going to need some help if you're planning to do something like this.
Yeah, and that stock portion of it, I guess, like on paper, there is value to it, but you can't access that value. It's not like
Yeah,
you
it's tied
own
up.
Apple stock and you can just sell it whenever you want. Like there's not really a market, and there's probably a clause in the contract that you can't sell to another individual, or any sales have to be approved by the firm. There might be some
Yeah.
provision where the PE firm will buy back your stock, probably at a reduced metric. So it's really, they're dangling that carrot in front of a stick. It's like, hey, you've got this 30% stock. If we can turn your company into what we've done with other companies, we're going to double the profits in 5 years and
Hmm.
then sell it so that, you know, $2 million worth of stock that we're giving you on paper is going to be worth 4 million 5 years from now. And then when we sell, you'll get that in cash, and everyone's happy. So that's the whole point of the stock. Again, not all these future deals come to fruition, or they end up being less than
Hmm.
what they projected. So those projections, I like to just tear them up and throw them out. Who knows what the future market is going to look like for this arrangement? But there hopefully will be some value, um, in a few years, 3 to 10 years down the line, when the private equity firm can ultimately resell the practice.
Hmm.
Um, and the numbers, it really varies by practice. Like, if you're the only doctor and the only revenue generator for the practice, like, you're probably not getting as big of a multiple. Um, because if you leave, the practice is kind of worthless. So
Or
there's going
become
to be,
disabled or,
yeah.
whatever.
So if it's a larger practice with multiple docs, and they have the ability to hire new docs to become employees and ultimately replace you and your partners who have one foot out the door because you want to retire, and with your winnings that you've cashed in on, then they potentially could give you a larger multiple. So it really varies, on the nature of the business and how likely it is that they can continue to grow your group and your profit margins, to ultimately resell it. So,
Yep.
is it worth it? Rochelle, to sell your practice, whether it be to private equity or someone else?
It depends. Haha. I mean, so I think the thing to consider when you're thinking about this is it in the prior example, is it worth it to reduce your annual income by that $500,000 of profit in exchange for 2.5 to $5 million in your pocket right now, plus whatever equity you potentially can get in the future? Maybe, like that might be like a slightly lower tax that you end up paying on that. Like maybe you get paid or taxed at capital gains tax rates instead of at income tax rates, which would be good. But it's really hard to know. But often it can be nice to have money in your pocket now instead of having it in the future. Like money in your hands right now is going to be more useful to you. You're going to be able to invest it and maybe have it turned around and generate some growth as well. So there's all of those kinds of things to consider. The other thing is kind of like, okay, how much longer were you planning to work anyway? Are you trying to sell your practice so that you can retire and now you have to work 5 more years? I don't know if that's worth it. Obviously, a question to ask yourself, maybe it is worth it to you, especially if you're going to get like a pretty dramatic payout to do it. But that could be something to consider as well. Do you have enough saved for retirement already? How much have you saved retirement? Could this get you like over the hump? Is it like I want to retire in 5 years? This basically gets me to my retirement goals. So in 5 years, when I'm allowed to retire, I will be in a very good shape to do that. Maybe that absolutely makes sense. Maybe this is the perfect solution. I think there's so many different things to consider, but one of the other big ones that is really helpful with private equity, and aside from the money, is just if the administrative burden of running your own practice has become cumbersome and it's really hard to like keep help and have like an office manager that's really doing a good job, and this company is coming to you with a lot of that already figured out, like they just have people who do those things for the practices that they own that is a lot more efficient maybe than what you're able to do on your own, that can be really helpful because I think for a lot of people, they don't want to spend time doing that. That's not why they decided to practice medicine. They don't want to do a lot of the administrative stuff. And if they can pass that off to someone else, it's going to be really helpful. Corey, you talk about more things.
Sounds good. So, yeah, what else is to consider? Is it, what direction do you see for your practice, your industry, et cetera? Like, do you feel like things are on the up and up, or do you feel like it's stormy clouds ahead? Are things heading downhill due to changes in reimbursements, patient demographics, et cetera? Like, do you feel like it's going to be, you're going to get more gray hair or lose your hair staying as in private practice and as a business owner? It could be a time to cash out if it's wearing on you. The other thing, again, you're going to become an employee of the new group. You're no longer the business owner. You no longer get to make the decisions. Can you last 3 to 5 years as an employee, whatever the contract says, working for a new boss with possibly new protocols? And some private equity firms will leave you alone. They'll say, hey, we like your practice. We just want the revenue. Operate business as usual. You just keep
Mm-hmm.
doing your thing. Like you still have to work 4 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever the requirement says. We expect you to see this. You got to still crank out these numbers to ultimately get fulfilled your end of the arrangement. But we're just going to keep letting you run business as usual and leave you alone. And everyone will be happy. Other firms are going to come in and say, hey, we're going to implement our management team, our operations, our systems, et cetera, and we're going to get you running like a fine-tuned machine. Um, Things are going to change though, and
Mm-hmm.
be okay with that. Are you someone who likes to be in control? Are you going to be able to answer to someone else and be told when to work, when you're allowed to take vacations?
Yeah,
Um,
I was just thinking that like now you have a limited number of vacation days, not however much you decide to take.
and most of these, like, they don't want to come in and just turn you into a indentured servant. Like they want to make it appealing to both parties. Otherwise, it's ultimately going to fall through. So they have an
Mm-hmm.
incentive to keep you happy, keep you working, um, so that they can, again, sell for a larger multiple down the road. So it's not like they're going to say, "Oh, you were used to taking 2 months off. Well, now you get 2 weeks of vacation per year." No one's going to sign up for that. So they'll still probably allow you to allow you similar flexibility. Maybe not complete autonomy, but like, hey, you were taking a total of 2 months of vacations off. You weren't working Fridays. Okay, you don't have to work Fridays. Like, we'll give you your vacation time. Um, you just got to coordinate with your partners, same as you were doing before. Someone's got to cover for you, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So
Please make at least as much money as you did before.
yeah, they're
Moving
not.
on.
It's unlikely they're going to come in and just flip everything upside down. But they might bring in, a new, um, you might have a new benefits package, new HR protocols, new operations, new systems that you gotta learn, like a new software program for your office billing. Like but you might not have to worry about it because that's not your responsibility anymore. So there's going to
Hmm.
potentially be some changes. Hopefully, nothing too crazy. Hopefully, they don't just insert a brand new office manager that starts bossing you around or trying to boss you around. So, but these are all questions to ask, things to consider, and really do your due diligence. To, like, what's the new work environment going to be like before you agree to just sign over?
Yep. Yep. I think that brings us nicely to some of the hurdles that could potentially come up when you're trying to close a deal. I think if it's a private practice, but there's multiple employees and partners and things like that, is everyone on board? Are you going to lose people if you do this? Especially key employees and like revenue producing doctors. If they're not on board and they're going to end up taking off, that might not be a good thing for the private equity firm and may affect the terms. Like if this stock isn't coming with you over here, then okay, your business is not worth as much now. So it could reduce the valuation. It could totally kill the deal. They could just be like, nope, that doesn't work for us anymore. If there are lots of different partners in the firm, so maybe it's like a slightly larger group with different equity shares and different career stages, they may have different ideas of what is the best thing. And then it might not work for everyone. And if it doesn't work for everyone, like again, the deal may not go through. Corey was talking about a group that he was talking to where one group where the old senior partner wanted to sell because he was getting close to retirement. So this is a good opportunity to put him over the edge and make it so that he's in a good spot to retire and have some extra income coming in right now. But the younger docs didn't want to, so the deal fell through, and that's not uncommon. So what's attractive for like an older senior partner who's retiring may not be attractive for like a younger doc who's got to stick around for longer and things like that. I also I know like Summa Health System in Ohio, for example, was a not-for-profit hospital that's selling to private equity. And that I think is going through, but there was a big hurdle because a lot of the employees there were working towards public service loan forgiveness. So if you go for being a nonprofit hospital and selling to private equity, and now all of these people that are working towards having their loans forgiven, that's not an option anymore, you're going to lose employees. Is it enough that it's going to derail a deal? Maybe not, but that's going to have a big impact on things as well. So there's so many things to consider just depending on the size of the group and all of those kinds of things.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's the more cooks in the kitchen, the more partners in the practice, the harder it is to get everyone in agreement when it comes to money. Um, so yeah, if you got, one guy who started the practice, he's older, he's ready to retire and he owns 50% of the shares and there's 8 other docs that split the other 50%, but and they're not going to get nearly as much money out of the deal, it might not be as attractive. It's like, all right, I'll get a
Mm-hmm.
million, but now I have to be an employee and I'm nowhere near retirement. This million isn't, it'll get me a little closer, but not enough.
Mm-hmm.
This,
Not going to make or break me.
yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like this. So no, I'm not agreeing to this deal. So,
Yeah.
um, some tips. Get an attorney. Do not sign anything without consulting an attorney. Not even a letter of intent, not even a we agree to, engage in further talks with you and no one else. Like, do not do anything without an attorney to review the agreement, to give you the legal verbiage and English. It's also advisable to have an investment banker on board that specializes in medical mergers and acquisitions to help negotiate the deal. And I talked to some people that they're actively seeking to sell. They're like the partners are in agreement. Hey, we want to look for a buyer. We feel like the time is ripe now. We could feel like we got a good opportunity here. Let's see if we can find someone to sell to. Um, an investment banker can help you seek out the right buyer. One for get you the most monetary value, but two also a good symbiotic relationship. So it's not completely overhauling your operations, and it's not going to make it a miserable work environment. Um,
Hmm.
so well worth it to have that team of an attorney and investment banker on your side to help facilitate and negotiate the deal. Odds are they'll probably be able to get you a little bit better number and maybe terms than what's initially presented. Because like no private equity firm is going to come in and give you their best offer right out of the gates. They're going to maybe
Try to
not
lowball you so they can make more money,
yeah, maybe
right?
not completely lowball you, but make, here's kind of the low end of what we have, what we think is worth it. And if you bite, great. That's more money in our pockets at the end of the day. But
Hmm.
they'll have a range that they feel comfortable with, and your goal is hopefully to get to that top end of the range. It could be also good to try to negotiate the cash versus stock. Money in your pocket now is more valuable than monopoly money that might be able to convert in the future. Um, so if you can negotiate a larger percentage of cash versus equity, that could be attractive too.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, also consult with your financial planner. Like Rochelle and I have seen some of this come through. We can help you crunch the numbers. Is this going to help you achieve your objectives? Like we talked
Hmm.
earlier, is it enough to get you over the hump to where you could retire once you fulfill the terms of the agreement for how many years you have to work? Or is this not really going to do anything for you? Would you be better off sticking with your current arrangement and just continuing to make your salary or your total collections, revenue, et cetera, for the foreseeable future. Um,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
then,
we can't tell you, like, does this make sense financially for the business? Like, is this a good deal? We don't know enough about your practice and things like that to be able to tell you that, but we can totally tell you how it'll affect your personal finances.
and
Yeah.
then, assuming you do decide to proceed,
Yeah.
once you do have the money,
We're the ones you talk to also. If you have an advisor, if you're making all these decisions on your own, like crunch some numbers, figure it out. But the next thing that you do with the money really depends on what your circumstances and objectives are. Like this is the it depends question, right? Like whatever you do with that money, obviously you want it to go towards your goals, but that could be securing your retirement. It could be helping your kids with college or a wedding or a home down payment. It could be gifting some money if you're above and beyond what you need for your own goals, but you've got significantly more money coming in. Like, how do we gift this appropriately? Do you want to keep working and maybe start another business and use this as a jump start to do that? And don't rush into anything. I sometimes have clients, even like selling a house or something like that. We sold a house, we have $300,000. What do we do with it? And they want a decision like, tomorrow. I'm like, well, put it in a savings account for a second. Take a breath. Like you don't have to do anything with it right this second. You want to be thoughtful. You don't want to rush into anything. You'll probably get approached by investment firms pitching their fancy schmancy services and investments. And, here's this private equity buy-in that you can do on your own. Since you just sold to private equity, you can put your money, like your big lump sum, into this XYZ thing. So start with the planning first, figure out what your goals are, find the tools that you can use to achieve those goals, whether it's investing or savings, depending on time frames and things like that. And then, you know, do the work to make it happen, but don't jump the gun and do the second thing before the first thing. Make sure you're doing the thing that makes sense for you and your family.
yeah, and there's a good chance your advisor has access to whatever some other firm might be pitching. Um, like, I've seen proposals from some of these places, and some of them get pretty elaborate. And they like to lead with, "Oh, we're gonna do tax savings, and we're gonna put you in these fancy schmancy investments that only you can get because you have a lot of money now, and your other commoners don't have access to them, and we have access
Commoners.
proprietary through our firm. Like, you can't get this anywhere else," type of thing. And we're gonna give you this bond ladder, and we're going to take the interest from the bonds and pay premiums on an annuity and put that in a tax deferred trust and blah blah blah, and use that to pay for fund a life insurance policy that you can withdraw from tax free in retirement and save on taxes, and it all
It
sounds
sounds like a
cool
nightmare.
and fancy. It's also a nightmare and a lot of
Yeah.
variables at play um, to go into. So, like, I mean, in some cases, something like this could make sense. It depends on the circumstances, objectives, etc. But I feel like some of those private client relationship groups, et cetera, they like to dangle complexity and like, this is what you need. This is what people in your shoes do, et cetera. And some do. And it works out great for some folks. But in a lot of cases, it can just be overly expensive and overly complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you want to take it slow. Don't jump on something just because they have some fancy PDFs with colors and graphs and stuff that look cool and they talk smooth and sound nice. Um, like, we have access to the private client teams as well that can do all sorts of portfolios and advanced strategies. And we've done them for some clients and it works out phenomenally, but it's got to be the right circumstance, the right objectives. We've got to know what we're getting into. So it's good to take it slow. Sometimes simple is better. Like depends on you, your circumstances, your
Mm-hmm.
objectives, what the goals of the money are, what you're trying to accomplish with it. Like I know someone who will remain anonymous, but he's retired with an 8-figure portfolio, so more than $10 million. It's all in index funds. Just it works for him. Like it's easy. It's simple. He knows what he has. It's liquid. He can access it at any time. Very, very simple and straightforward. And he's got more than enough money that he doesn't need anything overly. He doesn't need more tax efficiency. He doesn't need, more shelters or protections. It's just, hey, this works for me. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of power in that that appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think the more complex you make something, the more you feel kind of tied to it and whoever did that for you too.
Yeah.
Like if like how do I even get myself out of this situation now? It's so complex. But yeah, I think a simple can be better and gives you a lot more
Yeah.
flexibility a lot of times.
And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of advanced strategies. Like I have structured notes in my own portfolio. I've done preferred stocks,
Mm-hmm.
interval funds, non-traded REITs. I've done the muni bond strategy where you can target if you especially if you're in a high tax state and you're in a high tax bracket, like having a diversified muni bond portfolio that's maybe getting you 5% tax free. It's like a 8% tax equivalent yield. Like that's pretty appealing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not for everyone though. And some of those bonds, you're buying a 20-year bond. So it's like, yes, you can sell
Yeah,
them, but it's not like you're just selling a mutual fund or ETF.
it's a lot harder to
There's
do.
a little,
Mm-hmm.
there's some more hoops to jump through to make it happen. So, so yeah, it's all good stuff, all good things to consider. Depends on the circumstances, what's right for you. I'm a big fan of let's do the planning first. Let's figure out what you're trying to accomplish, how we're going to get there, and then we can figure out the best tools to get you to that end objective. So let's diagnose before we prescribe, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening, everyone. As always, feel free to reach out if you have questions or if there's anything that you think we should talk about.
And we'll see you next time.